our guest today is Hillary from the Outlaw Oracle. She's a deck creator, author, and I'm guessing tarot and oracle card reader.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
All of the things.
Why not? The more the merrier.
Seriously. It's like once you go down the rabbit hole, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, right?
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit, like, my deck is actually on the way. I'm very, very excited. I have actually seen your deck like in passing here and there, and I've never pulled the trigger. And I'm like, well, the Outlaw Oracle, pun, I guess, intended. But but yeah, so I'm super excited for it to arrive, to have my own copy. But if you have a copy there, I saw it. I love the fact that it like looks like a Marvel box.
Yes. Yes.
It's amazing.
I mean, even on the front, it says independent, authentic, and rebellious. And that's kind of the spirit of the whole thing. It's a little bit cheeky. The reason I created this deck was really my dad passed away in 2016, and I was pulling oracle cards and things, trying to, deal with my grief. And everything was just like rainbows and unicorns and sparkles and glitter. And I was like, this isn't my life. This doesn't apply to me right now. I am in the dark night of the soul. And so I just kind of felt like everything was kind of just shallow or hitting the surface. And I really desired a deck that would like walk with you on the dark side, through the dark side. So that's really what started it all. And it's such a fun deck. Like there's 44 cards. I drew the snakes and the medallions and things on the back. And then my friend Yana was able to vectorize that and add a whole lot more to make it pretty. But these are all photos I took driving across the US by myself. And a lot of these are my friends. And then I just wrote in here different messages. So they all kind of look like Polaroids. Um, but then I wrote in here different messages, and each card kind of has like an upright or reversed meaning, a straight shot, which is like the too long didn't read if you just want to read one sentence, and then recommended songs for the upright and reverse. And if you have 2 to 3 minutes to spare, there's the whole, message for you. And every card is like that. And so that's what started this whole deal. But then it has branched out into a second deck, a honky tonk tarot, coloring book, paper fortune tellers,
I saw
divination
that.
coins.
Yeah, that's like childhood right there.
It is. It's all of the things. Like, I don't know if you grew up in the
I
80s.
did.
I'm probably showing my age, but yeah, those are the things we played with on the playground.
Yep.
And so that's kind of what started this whole deal. And it's been so amazing because I always wanted to focus full time on something that felt fulfilling and meaningful to me. And I worked corporate. And so my witchy stuff was reserved to like, after 5. And now it's just so nice to be able to live full out, focus on this full time, travel around the world, talk to people about spiritual things instead of, sitting in a boardroom talking about numbers on marketing or something. So it's been the biggest blessing in the world to like put myself out there and do this and to make new friends with people like you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And and we also have that in common too. It's almost like your dad's passing. Like I had that same thing where my dad's passing just opened up the floodgates for me
Yeah.
in 2020,
Wow.
and really just made me realize, like, oh my gosh, this has been, it was so obvious. It was right in front of me the whole while, but
Yeah.
it was like, yeah.
That's so right. Like when you said it's right in front of you the whole while, like that's one of the things I've been coming to terms with since getting more into the community and making friends. And so for instance, when I was a little girl, I had all sorts of extrasensory things happening, but I didn't know what was happening.
Yes.
And so I remember I would say to my mom sometimes, does everything sometimes feel like it's going really fast? And she was like, no. And I'd be like, or do you sometimes hear voices or, like just these things? And she's just kind of like, no. Um, but now, you know, and the ear ringing and things like that. But once I started getting into circles where we could talk about these things openly, it's like, oh, those are messages from spirit, you know? And you have to kind of learn and practice how to hone those skills. But like you said, they've always been there. It's just before we chalked it up to anxiety or we chalked it up to whatever else.
Yeah. Yep. No,
Seriously.
absolutely. I've had the same kinds of experiences, and you know, realizing, and I think that's the biggest part of this whole journey, is realizing that we are much more intuitive as people than we even realize. And it's learning that nuance of it, that society has put these labels on us, but it's actually those, you know, sensories, those extra sensories coming
Mhm.
through and trying to get in touch with us.
Oh, totally. You know, the Outlaw Oracle is based on a technique called soul tracking. You know, and everything I do is super country, you know. So, you know, tracking back in the day was, you know, what people would do when they were looking for food and they would follow the footsteps of a certain animal or a prey, you know. But soul tracking to me is something that my teacher taught me at Gaia Wisdom School. I studied there for 7 years. And it's essentially finding that golden thread or those messages and following it through the day. And so, for instance, you know, like for me, and I wrote about it in the guidebook, but a fox came through to me in a dream, and he was very playful, and he brought me the color yellow in the shape of a heart, and he was very explicit about that. Like, I'm bringing you the color yellow, you know, and he said, I'm giving you back your childlike joy. And so I woke up and I was like, wow, like that really resonated with me. And then I started throughout my day and I started seeing the color yellow. I started seeing foxes in real life on billboards, on people's t-shirts, you know. And it's like that's that soul tracking. And when you see those signs, you got to just be present enough to go, okay, what's coming through for me right now? What was I thinking? What was I feeling? What's the message? You know, um, especially for that one, it was about being more joyful. So whenever I would see that, it would kind of remind me, oh, wait, maybe quit adulting so hard. Like, you know, like have a little fun with it, enjoy
Yeah.
yourself, you know?
Wow. Yeah, I had a story like that where, like, in the past, the one that was really prominent was a white, like the 1970s body style of a Corvettes, but it was like
Cool.
a white Stingray. And I had a friend who had one, and we just had this like connection that like we would literally like take a picture of it and send it to each other every time we saw one. And this one weekend, now, like, you know, 77, 75, like that was like the year. And in one weekend, I saw three of them in 3 days. And I was
Wow.
like, this is bizarre. This isn't even the same, like, this isn't even the same vet. Like, it's a different one. And I kept sending the pictures, and we were like, oh my God, what is going on here? And then all of a sudden, like, I realized that the universe was sending me the message of the stingray, like to look up the animal message of what a stingray is and
Mm-hmm.
like go with that. I'm like, they couldn't send me the fish, so they sent me the Corvette.
100%. That's soul tracking right there,
Yeah,
you know? It's
yeah,
so cool.
yeah,
I love it. That's one of the things I encourage over and over again over at the Outlaw Oracle is, hey guys, you know, what signs and symbols are coming through for you, you know, and are you paying attention, you know, because I think life gets a whole lot easier when you realize there's this whole team on the other side that's like rooting for you and is like, hey, hey,
yeah.
look this way or
Right.
move that way.
Yeah, or the license plates, like the license plates get really intense sometimes when I'm driving, and I'm like, oh gosh, okay, okay. Like,
Seriously. And sometimes you'll see those number sequences and like it's crazy when they start going up. It's like 1111 for 3 weeks and then it goes up to 444. You're like, oh shit, what's 444 mean? You know?
see, and that's the thing. I don't really like. There's a lot of people that are like specific as to what the number sequences mean, and I just kind of I'm like I can't. Like my brain will like explode if I put any more into it. But so like so I have my. It's almost like I have my language, and then I
Mhm.
figure it out from there. So when I see the numbers in synchronicity, I just take it as like the universe saying you're on the right track. Just keep going, or whatever you're thinking of or validating at that moment, you know? So that's how I do it. Because if I were to sit there and look up angel numbers all day, I wouldn't do anything else.
For real. Honestly, I love that you said that because that's what it is. It's developing a language of spirit that you understand, and
Mm-hmm.
that's part of like a lot of times, people will be like, oh, so you're just selling decks. And it's like, no, I'm trying to awaken people to their spiritual gifts and to the spiritual world,
Right.
and you don't need a deck and you don't need angel numbers. You need a gut feeling. You need, you know what I
Yes.
mean? Tuning into your senses and taking enough quiet time away from the noise, to get there. But like even like Zen Buddhists and stuff, they've learned to meditate in the middle of like Times Square, so you don't even need quiet necessarily if you hone your skills. But I love that you said it's creating a language, developing a language with spirit, because that is exactly what it is. Like, these cards to me, like when I see a sunset, I think a certain thing, but somebody else may think something else. Like to me, a sunset is completion, the end of the day. You've done all you can do for today, rest easy, for other people it might mean a closing or an ending, but it's important that you develop what's important, what's true for you, you
Right.
know
Right. I mean, there's a sunset on the death card,
yeah.
so we're ending the day, but we're going to start something else. There's
Mhm.
something else around the corner.
Dude,
Yeah.
yeah, that reminds me, when I was a little girl, I had the neatest neighbors. They were like elderly, and the husband died suddenly, like in the middle of summer. And mom and I went over to sit with the wife, and she was totally in shock. And she was staring out at the sunset, and she said, that damn sun's going to go down tonight, and that same damn sun's going to come up tomorrow. And I just remember thinking that was like the essence of the death card, because it's like her whole world changed that afternoon, and the sun's going to come up tomorrow, and it's going to be a different world for her, but that is really the nature of the death card, is endings and making room for new beginnings, no matter how painful they may be to let go of what you've ended.
Yep.
I know.
Absolutely. So, how did you come into the tarot? And, we talked about the deck, which I love and I can't wait because I like the photographic aspect of it because I was a professional photographer at one point. And yeah, so I really love bringing that photography element into, crossing over into
Yeah.
cartomancy. I think it's really wonderful. And it makes it more, I mean, I'm eventually going to make my own deck. I know it. It's just out there in the ether right now. It just has to hit me. But I like that element because I'm not artistic in a drawing sense,
Yeah.
but I can, convey what I want through photography. So
Oh yeah.
I find that inspiring, the decks that are photography based.
Oh, I can't wait to see what comes through you too. That's exciting. And I'm glad to hear you're like already entertaining the thought. Um, for me, it was with the cards, it was a soul tracking thing where I was taking pictures of things I thought were beautiful and meaningful to me, never intending to share them with the public. I kind of always thought I would share them with like a future boyfriend or something. But I met this amazing friend, Yana, in like a tarot chat room. We were both moderators on this big YouTube readers channel, and we got to talking. I told her the same thing as you. I want to make a deck. I want to start with the Honky Tonk Tarot, which is what you asked about. And once we got into it, she's like, well, you don't have all 78 of those cards drawn. Why don't we do a photograph based book first? And so she's the one that really pushed me, because she does decks prolifically. She makes like 2 a year.
Wow.
So she makes it look easy peasy, And so because of her, I think was the big push. And that's the way God works, just puts things in your life that helps remove blocks, And for me, it was a mental block. Oh, how do you make a deck? And then here I meet a friend in a moderator chat room that's like, oh, it's easy. We can do it in 2 weeks,
Yeah.
Give me your pictures. Let's go,
I think I need to
But
talk to her too.
oh, I will happily introduce you. Yes,
Absolutely.
Yana. I'll plug her right now. Yana St. Levy. And she is a publisher, and she could absolutely help you get your deck finished
Okay.
and done.
Awesome. Awesome.
Um,
Yeah, because I have some ideas. I think I want it to be a Lenormand.
oh,
And
amazing.
I do have, I mean, like I said, I owned my own photography studio for 10 years. So I have a catalog that I probably can more than do it.
Oh, good. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So and really the steps usually are, you know, identify how many cards you want, if there's suits or not, make a spreadsheet, write the names and the meanings, and then assign a picture to them, you know, and then you got a deck started right there, girl. And then, you know, get with a publisher like Anna, and she knows how to move and groove.
Awesome. Yeah, no,
She moves
definitely
fast
connect us.
too.
Yeah,
I was like,
connect
oh
us
shit, this
here.
is happening.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'm
But
serious. Connect us here on Instagram through Messenger or something, and then that way we can, I can figure it out with her. I'd love to. I'm really
okay, I
excited
will. And then
about it. So now,
when you
how did you
asked me,
come about?
yeah.
How did you like start your whole journey like with the tarot and like how long ago?
Yeah. So back when I was, you know, in high school and things, that was just something we would do for fun at parties, right? But no one really, we all took it seriously, but no one was like the resident tarot reader. You know what I mean? It was kind of like pass the cards around, everybody
Right.
try. When I got into my 20s, I met this, I worked for Red Bull. I was in marketing for 20 something years. And so I met this amazing woman named Jocelyn from Austin, and she was certified full blown cool ass Stevie Nicks witch, you know, just everything I wanted to be. And she started talking to me a little bit about my chart. You know, hey, you know, you're a Leo sun and moon, but did you know you're a Scorpio rising? And I'm like, what's that? You know, um, and then she started teaching me the tarot and a lot with astrology and the cards of destiny. She's really big on the cards of destiny, and she really opened me up in my early 20s. And then, like I said, when I was 36 and in 2016, my dad died, and I was searching hard. I missed him. There was a lot of things left unsaid. There was a lot of things, you know, I wanted more advice from him, you know. And so I got really curious about the tarot. And I am a 5-1 in human design, which means I'm a heretic investigator. So I have a lot of questions. I'm like, why do these cards mean this? Who drew them? What, you know? So I literally, like, I started buying big ass books like this, Meditations on the Tarot. And I bought the Rider Waite book that was written with the tarot. And I started reading, and it's like, here we are in justice. This is what it says. It is the balance whose one scale is on the earth and the other scale is in heaven. The Lord's Prayer reveals to us the principle of the justice of grace and the operation of weighing the means of the heaven earth balance. It's boring as shit,
Yeah.
you know? And so I started reading it and interpreting it, and I was like, making these country music associations. Like, for instance, if the devil isn't really the devil I learned about in Sunday school, but more so people who give away their power, you know, these chains are loose. They could loose them at any time, but they choose to serve this master. Well, that sounds a lot like Waylon Jennings to me. You know, like that good, you know, I'm a good-hearted woman in love with those good timing men, you know?
Right.
And so I started studying it and drawing it for myself. Like, I ordered a blank deck on Amazon. I'm just sitting in my apartment in Santa Monica, drawing these at night after work. And I shared them on Instagram for fun, like in my stories, like, hey guys, here's my Dolly Parton card. It's the Empress. And people started going, my God, this is making sense to me. I want a deck. So I drew all the major arcana like that. And I made this first a coloring book. So, like, for instance, you see the original, my version. When you turn the page, there's a whole lesson on what the upright or reversed meanings, the planetary and seasonal
That's
correspondences, my little
awesome.
my little snippet about what the devil card means and why I associate it with Waylon, and then 4 or 5 songs by Waylon Jennings that capture the essence of the devil card. So you can sit there and color this while you're listening to those songs and read this. And before you're done, you will have a good understanding of what that card means, you know? So I have the whole major arcana done in the coloring book, but the next task is to do all of the minor arcana and make it into a deck,
Hmm.
which Yana is on me. I mean, literally, she'll be like, Hillary, people want it. The people want
Yeah.
it. But I'm like, well, can we sell these that I've already made?
No,
We are
that's
going to make it.
fantastic. I love it. And it's and it'll be really great because they'll be able to they both carry your essence energy, so they'll be able to be used like in congruence with one another, like in readings. And I think that's really great too, because there's a lot of readers out there that they throw a tarot spread and then they end their reading with an oracle card, so for somebody to walk away with. So I think that's a really good complementary thing to have, that you have both already coming out.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one thing I highly recommend everyone do is like you mentioned earlier that your idea is up in the ethers, you know. And I don't know if you pay attention to Rick Rubin at all. He's incredible. He's a music producer that's done all sorts of things
Yes,
with a lot of folks, but he's the one that
yes. Now
Johnny
I know who you're talking about.
Cash's
Yes.
Renaissance and all that.
Yeah.
Well, he has this theory that, like, you know, the God essence, whatever you want to call it, the creative impulse, like all ideas, all potential are kind of like floating out there in the ether. And you have to be willing to be like the lightning rod or the clear, you know, the hollow bone or the clear channel, whatever you want to call it, to allow that to strike and come down to the ground and be brought into 3D form through you. And
Absolutely.
and if you don't stand up and become that lightning rod, that idea or that essence or the spirit of that message, it will go through
Yes.
someone else. You know, it will find a way to be
Yes.
expressed.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I have actually, heard that in a different realm, but the same thing, like, spirit puts the idea out there, and it's
Mhm.
to several people, but it's whomever decides to take it first and run with it. And
Mhm.
it is very true. And I really feel like that is probably the explanation to a lot of, like, well, how did the Native Americans and, like, this other, like, the Italians over here and this one over here all get shamanic information, but they had no way of even talking to
Yeah.
one another. And it's like, yeah, it's the same exact thing, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, I love that you touched on that. Like that's one thing. The more I dive into the spirit world and I meet other people with different beliefs, I really see kind of like that golden thread of truth through all of them. You know,
Yeah.
um, I love Native studies and I love Celtic wisdom, the Wicca, especially because the tuning into nature
Mm-hmm.
part. I think we've gotten so disconnected from nature and the natural cycles and rhythms. But as a woman, if you just tune into your moon cycle um, and pay attention to that, you can really start to make sense of like a whole lot of things in the world, you know. Excuse me, I'm going to drink something. My throat's getting weird.
Go ahead.
Mm. But yeah, the golden threads through all different beliefs is incredible. You know, I was blown away when I figured out that like Christmas, Yule was, you know, the celebration of the sun returning, which is also the winter solstice whenever we have the darkest night and then the sun starts to grow in strength. And I was like, oh, the return of the sun, sun, is the same
Mm-hmm.
as the return of the son in Christianity, you know, like,
Correct.
oh, mind blown, you
Right.
know?
Right. Because that date of the year was actually moved.
Hmm.
Like, she was not born then,
Right.
right. So it's, yeah, it is, it is. So, and that's the other thing, because I did start, that's when I started on the whole journey of um delving into what I wanted to find to be my truth eventually, or my belief system. That's where the first place I went was just like, all the ancient religions, and went back and back and back. And it was like how the Catholic Church actually conflated so much of the pagan belief system. And it was just like, whoa, wait a minute here. It's like, okay, well then why don't I just go back to that? Like, why would I just, and that was their theory of like, well, you could still celebrate your stuff in our new religion. And I'm like, well, I don't want the new one, I want the old one. That's what I did,
Yeah.
so. And I really can't say I'm one sect, or I'm one this.
Yeah.
So like, I just say I'm pagan. I honor the earth. I honor Mother Earth. I honor my connection to spirit, and and the earth. And that's kind of what I do.
Yeah.
I don't really, because you know what, you're gonna slap another label on yourself. And
Exactly.
why?
Ex-
Why?
Exactly. So funny. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. I got invited to speak at the Unitarian Universalist Church, and it was my first time like speaking at a church. You know, I never thought that would happen. It was a really cool place. I mean, everybody was there with different beliefs. You know, I didn't even know this kind of church existed, but I was speaking to them about being exiled and outcast, and that's why I created something called the Outlaw Oracle ultimately, because I was raised in the Bible Belt, and I was literally dunked 3 times, baptized 3 different times, because we were Baptists, mom and dad, when mom and dad were together, and I'm about 7 years old, and they say, you know, it's time for you to get saved, and I'm like, yes. And so I asked Jesus into my heart, get saved. Then my parents went through a rocky relationship, decided to move us to the Mennonite Brethren Church. They said, sorry, that baptism doesn't count here. And I'm like, wait, they said once saved, always saved, you know, and
Right.
they're like, no, you're gonna have to do it here if you want to be, you know, saved here. I was like, okay. So I got saved again. And then my parents divorced, and my mom started, well, married a guy in the Church of Christ. And so we go over to the Church of Christ, and they are very rigid. Like, they only sing a cappella. They don't think that music should be, I mean, musical instruments should be part of worship. And they said, you got to get saved again. And I'm like, wait, I've been saved twice. And they're like, if you want to be a member of this church, you have to be
Yeah.
saved again. So by the time I was in my 20s, I was just kind of like, none of y'all say I'm okay. All of y'all say I have to do it your way. None of this feels right to me. I'm going to go directly to source, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what I started doing. So I kind of stopped looking outside of myself for people to say, yeah, you're okay. You're going to heaven, you know? And I started going, hey, creator, are you good with me? You know?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, and that was, I still remember it was like around this time of year, and I was definitely between the ages of like 7 and 12. And my neighborhood had a cemetery in it. And it was it was closed down. It was not like, so it was in disarray
Oh,
and stuff. And I have no idea, but my dad decided to take me and go exploring in the cemetery. And I was like, okay, looking back now, he was a Cancer. So, yeah, okay, you know.
yeah,
And I remember, like, and I had shoes on, and like boots. And I remember crunching, like very, very specifically crunching in the leaves, and just connecting and pulling in like all of the energy and the sun and everything around me, and hearing, why do I feel so much more connected to God here than inside a building? And I was that young, and I couldn't put two and two together. It took so long to
yeah,
put it together. But that was like one of those moments where, like, I still remember that, and just feeling so alive and present in that moment. And yeah, connecting with the earth, connecting with source and everything. And I, like I said, I know I found my path when I needed to find my path, but I still kind of was like, shit, why couldn't I find it sooner? Like,
yeah. Oh, I know,
you know?
right? Because life gets so much richer, and it feels, I don't know, calmer. That some people call it that peace that passes understanding, you know. But
Mm-hmm.
like for me, life is richer, calmer, more steady, because of
Yep.
this constant practice and connection with source, you know. Was there ever like an awakening moment for you where you were like, aha, like, oh my gosh, this is real, 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 you know?
Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, but it was something where, like I said, it was like this slow journey
Uh,
of things occurring, and people like just hushing me up, and like, okay, we don't, let's change the subject. And it's like, what? What?
you're scaring me.
Yeah. Yeah, let's change the subject. Like my own family, I think my family had an inkling, my grandmother had an inkling I was gifted.
Yeah.
But like I said, they just changed the subject, and it's like, but why? Like, why did you do that? You know, but I think at the same time, they didn't even, it's almost like I scared them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
it was kind of like, whoa, okay, you know what? Let's just kind of change the subject right now. And but yeah, and because when I finally like mentioned it to my mother, she was like, "Oh yeah, well, we figured." I'm like, "What?"
You're like, this is a big deal to me, Mom.
Yeah, yeah. Like
That's
here,
so
I think I'm
funny.
like bearing my soul, and they're like, "Yeah, well, it's in the family." I'm like, "Well, thanks."
Yeah,
you know. So, like I said, I think that it came at a time in my life when I had to do all of these other things to get to it. You
yeah.
know.
Oh, yeah. I think of it a lot. Well, my spirit guides told me we're going to give you puzzle pieces to snap together, and we're going to give them to you one by one because you can't handle the full picture,
Right.
hun. Like, and that really helped me kind of slow down and realize, like, okay, I don't have to know. Well, we're never going to know all the things,
Right.
But when they kind of put it to me like that, like puzzle pieces, it made so much more sense. Oh,
I always say that it's the million-piece puzzle that never gets finished.
I love that. That's real.
you know, we're
That's so real.
we're working on the border, and then we're working on a corner over here, and then we're working on a corner over there. So yeah, no,
Yeah, and then pretty
absolutely.
soon
I
you're like,
mean, and
wait, these
yeah,
two clumps, they click
yeah,
together.
yeah. I mean, and
Yeah,
I am so dense. Like honestly, like spirit knows I am so dense that I'm like, you've got to show it to me 3 times. Like hence the whole thing with the Corvette. I'm like, I need it 3 times before I can register it as being like, okay, wait a minute, this is something I need to pay attention to. Because like I'm a little spectrumy, so I'm
hmm,
like, squirrel. But like it took me, when I'm telling you dense,
yeah,
like even that, it took me 10 years to figure out that I had actually truly laid on my couch one day, passed on, went to the other side, spoke to my grandmother, and sent me back, and it was real.
yeah,
Because I
yeah.
thought it was just like
A
I was so ill
dream.
when it
Yeah.
happened. Yeah, I didn't even know what it was.
Hmm.
All I know is that like I got up off my couch and it felt like I fell back into my body.
Yeah.
And then I just was kind of like, okay, like, and I just went on with whatever was going on the rest of the day because I had kids to take care of and like all this stuff. But it was like, no, no, honey, you really did
Yeah.
like go to the other side and pass on and came back.
Yeah.
And my grandmother guilted me into coming back. So,
She's like, they need you. Get
so
back
oh
then.
my gosh, she was still the Italian grandmother on the other side. You do it if you love me. And I'm like, fine,
Oh,
fine, I'll go back.
that's amazing.
but
Oh,
like
mhm.
yeah, 10 years to like totally awaken and come to terms with all this stuff, and then all of a sudden like all of these pieces are being put together backwards.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. My journey has been really similar too. It's like we talked about, like putting together a little clump over here, getting an understanding here. And like I said, like I dive into the tarot, I'll dive into the Tao Te Ching, I dive into the Bible, I dive into, all sorts of different things. And I start to see this common thread. Um, one of my big like awakening moments, I'd already been on the path for at least 5 years. And I went to Boston on a work trip. And the trip ended on like Saturday. And I realized I was only like 30 or 45 minutes from Salem, Massachusetts. And so I called my boss and I was like, hey, can I take Monday off? Can I change my flight? And can I just stay? I really want to go spend a night in Salem and just see it before I fly back. And he was like, yeah, of course. So I basically extend the rental car, change my flights, do not have a hotel in Salem. So I go on this app called Hotels Tonight. And they had a room in this little bed and breakfast called the Merchant Inn.
Yes.
And it was gorgeous. Like, and I got it for $100. And I was like, oh, cool, let's go. So I drive over there, check in, and it is this gorgeous old home that's been redone. They give me like a little real like skeleton key, and they go, well, sorry, we had to put you on the top floor. It's the only room that was available. I'm like, okay. So it's basically like this attic penthouse, right? You got to lug your luggage up like 3 flights of stairs, but everything's beautiful, amazing. When I get up there, it's this suite. It's like there's like a fireplace and a little living area. There's your bed. There is this ladder that goes up to the roof, and you have your own patio rooftop view of all of Salem. And then there's this beautiful bathroom with a stand up shower and one of those cool little in the middle of the room, like pedestal bathtubs. I was like, oh my gosh, I hit the jackpot, you know? So I throw my bags down. I'm like excited to go explore. And I go down and I start walking around and I end up going into the wand shop, right? And buying myself a wand. And
I love her. I love Why Not's wands.
yeah,
So amazing.
yes, that's
I
it.
go
Why
every
not
time
wands?
I'm there.
Oh, I loved it too. So I bought a
This one's
wand and
from
then,
there.
ah, it's beautiful. What
Yes.
kind of wood is that?
This is some kind of rare wood that was grown in Brazil.
Oh, beautiful.
And I actually use this one when I read.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
So, so I bought a ticket for like a walking tour, you know, at Why Not Swans. And then I go and grab like I think it was like a lobster roll on the square. And I'm looking at the square. I'm like, oh, that's where Hocus Pocus was filmed. Just having so much fun. We go on this walking tour. And, you know, they're kind of telling us a little bit of spooky stuff, a little bit of history. It was an excellent walking tour. But we're coming towards the end of it. And they stop right in front of my hotel. And she says, this is one of the most haunted buildings in Salem. And I'm like, huh? You know, and she's like, yeah, the lights go on and off in that upstairs top room. I'm like, my room? What? You know, and so I'm getting kind of freaked out. And I remember I had made some friends with this couple from Texas on the thing. And so I lean over to them. I go, that's my room. And they're like, you're joking. I'm like, no, I'm fucking serious. Like, that's my room. So we finished the tour and I walked back and I'm a little bit scared, like, because she had showed me the picture of the witch that had been photographed, you know, in the staircase. I was a little scared to go back. So there's a bar right next door to the Merchant Inn. And so I go to get some liquid courage and I'm sitting at the bar and I'm talking to the bartender about it. I'm like, is the next door place really haunted or do they just say that? And she's like, oh, yeah, it's haunted. And then she's like, hey, and I go, she's like, why are you staying there? I said, yeah, I'm staying in the room upstairs that everyone says the lights go on. She's like, oh my God. So she leans over, grabs these two locals, and she's like, boys, she's staying in the Merchant. And they're like, oh my God. They come over and they start telling me, man, we used to skateboard in the parking lot and lights would come on and off even whenever there was no power to the building. Will you take us to your room? Will you take us to your room? I said, no, I'm not taking strangers to my room. You know, like, but anyway, so I end up, you know, after like 2 beers there, I end up going back. And as I'm walking up the sidewalk, I could feel the heaviness and stuff. And you know, supposedly the legend is that the sheriff that presided over the witch trials lived there on that land, not in that home. The home was rebuilt later.
Right.
But when he lived there and he had his house there, he kept a lot of the female prisoners, the witches, in his basement, and he did all sorts of terrible torture to
Oh
them.
my gosh.
Well, when he died, his wife was afraid that people would desecrate his grave because by then people were sorry for what they'd done. So she had him buried there in the basement. So supposedly people see this, you know, sheriff, I think it's Corwin, in the halls, and then they see one of the witches, you know, that looks really distraught, which if you Google it, you can find it. It's a scary picture. So I'm going back and I'm getting ready to go in. I just stop on the front and I was like, I look up at my window and I was like, I'm going to anchor light right here, right now. So I start to call in light through the top of my head. I'm running it through me like a current into the ground. I was like, nothing is going to harm me. And I kind of created this vortex around me. Nothing's going to harm me. I'm here to help. I'm here to help. I'm here to help. And I prayed, I asked all my guides and ancestors, please come help me. I'm scared, you know? So I go upstairs. I go in my bedroom. I have a cup of tea by the little fireplace. I go to bed. And in my dream, I was walking through like a forest and it was like early fall. All the trees were different colors. And I come upon a woman who's gathering herbs in like a sash. And I'm just watching her. And after she grabs some of them, she goes around the corner and she's got a cauldron on a fire and she's putting these herbs in. And she looks up at me and she's not mad at me for like spying on her. And she smiles and she just says, the magic is in you. And then I woke up. Well, when I woke up, the bathroom door that was a barn door had been closed. I never closed it the whole time I'd been there. And when it was closed, it revealed a mirror on the wall. And I was like, someone's been in here in this room, like a spirit, you know? So I open it and I'm just thinking about that witch. And I realized, hey, the witches used to be down in the basement of this house being tortured, but now the witch is in the penthouse. And so
Yep.
I started talking to the girls. I was like, ladies, we're in the penthouse now. I turned on the music. I ran a bubble bath. I went up on the roof and had a dance party. I smoked weed. I mean, I did whatever I wanted to do. I partied for all of those witches, my witches, you know? And I said, we're in the penthouse now. And, you know, and anchoring that light, offering that healing. So then it's time for me to check out at 11. I leave and I'm walking down the driveway to my car with my bag. And there's a little gift shop right there. And I look up and I look in the window and there's a sign behind the thing and it says, the magic is in you.
Oh my gosh.
So I go in there and I'm like, can I buy that? And she's like, oh, that's not for sale. And I was like, but I want it. I really want it. And she was
Right.
like, well, it seems like you need it. So she took it down off and she sold me her like private little flag that
Oh,
said what was said to me in my dream. And that's when I came home and I was just like, this is so much bigger than me. This is so much bigger than, you know, this is about doing light work. This is about doing grid
yes.
work. This is about
Yes.
helping the world and helping other timelines.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big part of my awakening when I like jumped all the way in, you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. Absolutely. Have you ever been to the Witch City Tarot Festival? Oh,
No, do I need to
oh,
go?
you need to go.
Okay.
So it's a tarot convention. It's literally a tarot convention in Salem. I went to the last one that they had in 2023. They didn't have one in 2024. They're having one in 25. You could buy tickets now. It's in the Hawthorne, which is also another really haunted. The sixth floor is like bonkers haunted. And it's the last weekend in July of 25. So if you go on Eventbrite, you can find it.
Okay.
I'm already going, so if you go, we'll meet
Yeah,
up.
that sounds amazing.
Yeah,
I will definitely check
yeah,
that out. I cannot wait
yeah.
to get
And
back to Salem.
you're
I
the
love
second person I have spoken to in the last like week and a half that have told me they both stayed at the Merchants Inn. So
Oh,
when you said that, I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah,
and I feel sorry for the folks that own it because they don't want to talk about the ghost, and they're really like and it's such a lovely place. They don't want people to be afraid, you know.
right.
Um, but there is some grid work that needs to be done there. I did some, but I don't know that I did enough, you know, or some pomp work, you know, just to help ease the spirits there because there is something there.
Yeah.
But the Merchant Inn, like if you go to the website, they don't talk about it at all. You have to like really like Google and go on like the third
Oh,
page of results to find.
The Hawthorne is all about like bragging it out.
They're like, come on with your spooky stuff.
Exactly, exactly. And we when we were there, some people went up to the sixth floor and were taking pictures in the hallway, and you could see orbs on the camera. So,
Wow.
you know, there's things that you could see through the lens of the camera, you
Hmm.
know, on your phone that, you know, you're not maybe capturing with your naked eye. But yeah, it's really neat.
Wow, that's
And
so.
we were there. So I went, and I actually like Salem in July
Oh,
because I'm not a cold weather
yeah,
gal, okay,
yeah.
firstly, and I'm not a crowd gal. So going in July, you get enough of what you need of your
Hmm.
fix
Yeah,
that, you know, you don't have all the crowds and you don't have to deal with people. Um, a healer saying I don't like people, but
I get it.
but it's too much energy, you know.
I get it.
So
For
so I
real. And I've seen some live things from Salem this week. It's like, ooh, I don't ever want to go during Halloween. It looks like a circus.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. I feel like, you know, yeah, it's their time of year and stuff, but you know what? Real witches go in the off season.
yeah, I think so.
That's my take on it. But I went in July of 23. This year they didn't have an event, but it was funny because my husband and I decided to take a road trip and we went like, so I'm in Jersey. So we went north into Vermont and New Hampshire, went all the way up to Bar Harbor in Maine, and then came back down. And I was like, look, we're driving through. I want to go to Salem and I want to go to Mystic. So I had like my little witchy back end of the trip, you know, on the way home. And we stayed in the Hawthorne again. And it was so fun. They do a lot of weddings. They do a lot of events. So it's hard to sometimes get a room if you're even going in July too. Like, so it's like very limited. And we just so happened to get a room for a couple nights that we were going to stay. And it was so funny because it was like we were trying to sleep and it started at like 10, 11 o'clock at night and it went till about 2 o'clock in the morning, where it literally sounded like there was a party going on above us. And it was both nights that we stayed there. And then all of a sudden, 2 o'clock in the morning, it just stopped. And I was like, and we were like trying to figure it out, and I'm like, no, and my husband was like, what is up with all these people and the partying and this and that, and I'm like, I don't know. And I don't think it was like, yeah.
Yes, for
I think it was
real.
spirits having a party and we heard it.
Yes. You know, I've heard time described like, you know, an antenna that you can pull out and how those tubes, when you push them in, they kind of collapse on top of each other. So we think of time as like,
Linear.
this was the past, this is more recent past, and this is where we are now or whatever. But you can collapse those where they're on top of each other. And that's why you could hear people in the ballroom dancing over you. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
it's fascinating. Like,
Yeah.
I also watched The Flash last night, which is really funny. But have you seen that Marvel movie?
No.
It's about
I'm
timelines.
really, I am so disconnected from like TV and the news and movies. I don't watch any of it because
Yeah,
I kind of like, I'm starting to realize like at first it was kind of like I don't have patience. I could be doing something else.
yeah.
But then I'm starting to realize that it's like again, one of those connecting the dots backwards. I don't like the vibration that comes
Oh
off it. Like
yes, girl.
even the acting of people acting in that way, like violence and stuff like that, it impacts me. So I'm like, man,
I'm with you. I do not like anything violent, gory,
yeah,
anything like that.
yeah,
I will sit down and watch movies, especially with people that enjoy that. It's a way of bonding with them. So I watched The Flash, and it was about the multiverse and about timeline jumping, and supposedly this guy can run so fast, if he runs backwards he can run through time, you know. And so he was going back in time to try to change things. His mother ends up, you know, his mother in real life died and he wanted to go back and save her. And but when he does that, when he goes back and saves her, he ends up completely changing everything for everybody, just that one act of like, you know. And it was so cool to see kind of like, because my cousin doesn't believe in anything like that I do. You know, she's just very conservative Christian. So we watched that together, and then we were able to talk a little bit about timelines. And I was glad to have that point of reference to kind of make a connection with her, you know.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm kind of coming to the conclusion that time isn't linear. It's like the Fibonacci coil.
Spirals. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a spiral. And
Yes.
that's how you can get to one point here and turn around and look down into the past, or you look up into the future and then it's
Yes. Oh, and I also like that too, because I've thought about this before where it's like, oh, I'm repeating a pattern, right? Or I'm having deja vu, or I've felt this before. But this time, as I'm going through it, I'm approaching it from what you might call a more elevated perspective because I have more experience. I have the remembrance of what happened the time before. And so I kind of like thinking of it like it's like part of your evolution. Like it is a spiral, but it always feels a little bit more elevated or a little bit more refined. You know, when you come back on those lessons over and over again, it's like, okay, another puzzle piece.
yeah. I mean, and again, much like the tarot, you've got 1 through 9, and 10 is just one at an elevation.
Yeah.
So
Ooh,
yeah.
girl. Yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
It's really funny because it's almost like the way that I look at it is like tarot gave me the tool for communication so that I can understand and translate everything through the tarot, through my understanding of the tarot.
Yes. It is. That's a whole language in and of itself that you can share with spirit and share with so many other spiritual people here in the 3D. I think that's our biggest limitation as humans. We can't wrap words around the ineffable. Like, how do you do that? Like, it's incomprehensible. It's, you know, it's so big and divine and you know, intelligent and all of these things, but we try. because we have to, and so we develop these shared languages like tarot,
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and I think, and the other thing too is I think we do it because we're given that characteristic of curiosity as humans. So
Hmm.
it's almost like they want us to do
Yeah.
it.
Yes, my mom calls it this God-shaped vacuum where people are curious and they're trying to fill, like, oh, what is this? I've been separated from God in the 3D. How do I get back to that feeling of wholeness that I had before I was born? And I like that, like I like that analogy because it is something that I'm very, very interested in. Obviously, you too, we've made our whole lives about it. But speaking of, like, isn't tomorrow Halloween? Is this our Witches New Year, Samhain? Is it tomorrow?
Is tomorrow? Yeah, yeah. Tomorrow's Halloween.
Are
See,
you
but
doing?
I see, and but everybody's different.
Yeah, yeah.
I tried the first year. I tried to do Dumb Supper, Samhain, and
Mhm.
Halloween all at the same time, and like you're trying to eat in silence, and the doorbell's ringing for kids for candy, and I'm like I can't do it. And then the next year it was really, and like I said, it's all evolution. The next
Yeah.
year I found out that there is actually an ast- astrological
Yes.
there's an
And it's like 2 weeks
astrological
from now,
Sabbath,
right? Like,
right?
it's,
November
there
7th.
you go.
So I'm like, oh, I'm like, oh, I like that. I like 15-degree Scorpio, like 15 degrees. So I'm like, now I have so I can celebrate and kind of draw out um my traditions and stuff like that for like another 2 weeks.
That sounds
So yeah,
sweet.
November 1st, everybody's gonna be having their Christmas tree out, and I'm gonna be like, don't talk to me till after the 7th. So
That's
so
awesome.
yeah,
I
so I
love
get
that.
I get 2 more weeks of witchiness.
Yes. Yes. My friend Morgan, she's the same way. We were talking and I was like, oh, are you going to do your divination tomorrow? I like to do my divination around this time, like for the year, like pull one card for every month for myself. And she's like, no, not till the 7th, and same thing. Like,
Yeah,
so I like that idea of extending, because really these energies apply and then they dissipate.
right.
And this is my favorite time of year.
Right.
It's
And
just,
the other thing too is I kind of was like, like the Catholic Church made Halloween on October 31st.
Mhm.
Like, no, sorry, I'm bucking the system. I'm not going with you guys. Like, it's like I was like, at first, I was like, I had a little bit of animosity there. And I was like, okay, no, we are like we're taking it back. So, you know,
For real, for
yeah,
real.
yeah. And like, that's even like I probably my two favorite holidays are, well, three. I have to say three then. Out of the eight is Samhain,
Hmm.
Yule, and I love Ostara. I love Easter, like
Yeah.
the spring equinox. That's like one of my favorites. And I like cook like a maniac, like for all three. So it's a lot
I
of
love
fun.
a start. I also like Imbolc because it's like the returning of hope. You
Mhm.
know,
But it's
um,
so cold and yucky here. Like
yeah. Oh,
I
yeah. You're
can't get
further
festive.
north.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
further north. Like, because when I learned Imbolc was like Imbolge, and it was when their livestock and their women were very
right.
pregnant, but had not yet had the babies or the new livestock. And it's in that dark cold of winter, but you're like, oh, hope is coming.
Yes,
Like newness is coming. So I like that one too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they're fun. They're really, hey, and like I said, we got more to celebrate rather than less. So I
Yes.
really I like that as well.
Me too. Me too. Um, I got this book. Like, if I'm into rituals, but it's Rituals of
Oh,
Celebration
cool.
by Jane Meredith. But she does recommended rituals for all of the Sabbats, and then she has like some writing about her and her son because her son would help her do these and stuff. But I just read the Samhain one, and anyways, it's lovely. It's written so well, and so many great ideas if you like to do rituals. which I do, and I'm always looking for new, fresh ways to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like to do things that just kind of call to me in the moment that feel very aligned.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of do it. So I find a different way to honor each holiday every
Yeah.
year. Like so, but you know, again, going back to being Italian, cooking, just
Yeah.
cooking, you know?
It is a ritual. It
Yes,
is.
absolutely. And I laugh like every year, like especially Thanksgiving and Christmas, because like I still, so I do like a Yule dinner, but then as Italians we used to have this big thing for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, so I still kind of like honor making the meals even though I'm like not that religion
Right.
anymore. And it's funny because the dogs go bonkers and like everything. And my husband's like, why is this every year? There's such chaos. I'm like, because my whole family's here helping me cook. Like they're all around me yelling, put more salt. No, not too much garlic. Like, you know, it's the whole thing. And I'm like, and my dogs are seeing it. Like they're here, you know? So,
I
and
love
it's,
that.
yeah, yeah.
I love
So,
the warmth and humor that I hear about Italian families. You know, like it's just like one of those things where you almost have like FOMO. You're like, man, what a cool lineage. You know?
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
but and that's the thing too, that like when once you sit down and with another Italian and you finally get them to admit it and be like, honey, our very lives are witchcraft. Like every tradition we have, if you really look at it, is rooted in the craft, dear. Like you're just gonna have to admit it and like it. As a culture, we're witches.
Yeah.
And and it's fantastic, and but at the same time, like I said, you're so raised in it that you don't even realize it until you step out and look back,
Yeah.
and then you're like, holy cow. But yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I love that you do this every week. And now that I know, I devoured like 3 or 4 of your episodes yesterday because I was like, oh, I've got to see who she's talking to. But I want to thank you for having me and thank you for making this
Thank you
platform. Like,
for being here.
yeah,
Thank you for
this,
being here. And I've got some new ideas coming up and we're going to chat because well, I guess I'm going to just say it right now. I realized that we can have more than one person on an Instagram live chat.
wow, that's amazing.
So I want to open it up where I'm making panels of like 3 people.
Yeah,
So it'll be me, you, and like another person. And then we're just going to field live questions from people. Like, I think that would be so much fun.
definitely. Yeah, I am
All
down. I
right.
had so much fun this
Me
morning.
too.
And what a great way to start the day.
Yeah.
Like, thank you.
Thank you for being here. I want you to just like, you know, promote yourself, let us know and we didn't even get to this weekend with Junk Gypsy, which I was like wanted to talk about.
Oh, I know. Oh, it was fantastic. Junk Gypsy, by the way, they just, those women are magic. And so they called it Practical Magic Prom. They throw a spring prom and then they throw like a haunted honky tonk kind of prom in the
Yeah,
fall.
and
But this year,
don't they do the Roper Mrs. Roper Day too?
yes,
Yeah.
they're
So I get their emails because I bought boots. I'm a cowboy boot girl. Like
awesome.
so yeah, so I've bought a few pairs from them and I'm on their email list.
Oh, good. They're those girls and their mama and their dad. They're all amazing. But yeah, so they have this whole compound. You know, they got their junk gypsy store, and then back behind they brought in 2 farmhouses and a couple. They created the Thelma and Louise garage that you can go there and stay with your girlfriends. And there's like a huge mural of Brad Pitt and Thelma and Louise on the wall. Like they're just adorable. I mean, they just know how to throw down. And so I got invited out, and it was kind of one of those full circle moments where you know, when you come out of the closet with your beliefs in where I'm from, you know, the Bible Belt, like when I popped up at my hometown at the Pumpkin Festival with my Outlaw Oracle stuff, people literally walked by and hissed at me, you know, like, and it's hard. It's hard to constantly have people like, you're damned, you're going to hell, you're wrong, you know, my children should fear you. These are the things that people say. But I go down there for the Practical Magic Prom. I'm invited to read for all these women, and I show up, It's decorated amazing. I felt like I was in the middle of a movie, you know, like the movie. And everyone is wearing their witch stuff and their skeleton stuff and like celebrating their woo, you know? And I'm sitting over in the corner reading cards, and really powerful messages were coming through, you know? And the craziest thing of all is like, when we talk about everything coming full circle, like when I wrote this deck, I put recommended songs on every card, and whether you pull it upright or reversed. Well, one of the artists that I wrote in here, she was an up and coming woman when I wrote this 2 years ago. Her name's Taylor Honeycutt. And I recommended her songs in my book. Well, she took notice, and she started introducing me to all sorts of her musical friends and her, you know, people that are in her life. And I've made all these new friends because of Taylor. And here I am at the Practical Magic Prom reading, and guess who's headlining? Jade Marie Paytech, which is a friend I met from Taylor in Nashville, you know,
Oh,
like, and
wow.
it just starts to feel like, oh my gosh, you know, you are supported. Like the more you step into your gifts and step on the path, the more you will be supported in that spiral. It really is up and up and up, you know? And what a change from 2 years ago when I was at my own pumpkin festival and people were like hexing me, you know, to be at this place where there was a line 5 people deep to get a reading from me, you know? And when I was trying to break down my table, there were people like, how do I book online, you know? So,
That's awesome. So
yeah,
how do we book you online?
yeah. Well, go to theoutlaworacle.com, and there's a book a reading lot link, and there's also the shop. Um, and Odd Carrick, thank you so much for saying that. I'm glad that it feels so intimate and welcome. We're glad you're here. It
Yeah.
is just two women talking today. We're not reading. But if you do want to book a reading with either of us, you can go to my website, theoutlaworacle.com, or
My
is there a way to book readings
website.
with you?
Yeah, my website's the same way. It's cardshaper.com.
Cool.
So yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So, yeah, and like I said, I've got my decks, and I've got the Honky Tonk Tarot coloring book that teaches the language of tarot in simple country terms. And eventually we will have a Honky Tonk Tarot deck.
Yeah, I'm
But
looking forward to it. Well,
this
thank
was,
you so much for being a guest today.
yeah,
It was great. It was great. We
this
have to
was
have you back for
amazing.
the panel.
Anytime, you just let me know,
Yeah.
okay?
Well,
And
you know,
thank you
I
for
think
doing
maybe
this.
we should do you and your deck creator friend. That might be like a good panel about like how do I start? What should I do? You know, like we could field questions about people maybe wanting to create their own deck and start.
Definitely, she is a pro.
Oh,
So, okay,
cool.
and I'll send you her profile after we get off.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely. Thank you
of
again.
course. You have a good one.
You too. Everybody, this was Hillary from the Outlaw Oracle. Thank you so much. And we'll be in touch. Mwah.
See you. Bye.
Bye.